My name is Jenny Wiley. I am Director of Community for the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and I want to welcome you to our Energy Explorer live series. At Ipek, our mission is to raise the consciousness of the world one person at a time. And not only are we certified professional coaches through Ipek, we are a community of helpers with big hearts and amazing stories. So this Energy Explorer series is highlighting people in our community who are using their talents and drive and highest selves in order to live in their purpose as coaches. And let me tell you, there is a lot of heart here today with us, with our guests. We are joined today by Amanda and Chris, this dynamic duo behind the Crush Method. And they took their experience building life and executive coaching businesses to other coaches so that they can learn marketing, sales, and all the other stuff that you need to build a business around coaching. We're so excited to have you join us here today. Chris and Amanda, what is your background noise today?
Well, we also have a hungry cat that's always hungry.
And 4 kids, which is like 1 million kids.
We have 1 million kids. And it's getting warmer in Texas, so I'm going to go ahead and say air conditioning for sure.
That's
yes.
There you go. Or maybe
Gentle
Disney back there
hum.
playing.
That's
right.
awesome.
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we are so glad that you're able to join us today. For everyone who don't already know Chris and Amanda, they have 35 years of consulting experience between them from their pre-coachy days, and they're building their own independent practices. And they had this amazing, opportunistic, what we in Ipek call a level 5 moment, when they realized that they could do way more together than apart. How cool is that?
And then I get to work with my lovely bride. So hey, it's a
Exactly.
win-win,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Definitely a level 5.
So we're going to get to know them a little bit better and learn more about the business that they've built. And if anyone has any questions for them, if you're joining us live in Zoom, feel free to use the Q&A box and we will field those questions over to them. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, we've got our friend Jessica over there watching the chat. So you can add any comments and questions in there and they'll field them over to us as well. So awesome. Welcome, everyone. So, okay, Amanda and Chris, when we were preparing for this interview, we were talking about the different paths that you were both on before you decided to enroll in Ipek. And I'd love to just go back in our time travel machine and talk about what you were, let's start with Amanda, because you were the one who went through the program first. Let's talk about what you were experiencing in your life that really made you go, maybe I should get a coach certification.
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess I started out as a consultant out of college, and the consulting industry is notorious for really long work weeks, long work days, very, very high expectations. And, just like, I think everybody's really dealing with this, not just the consulting industry. It's just being hyper attached to email, hyper connected, and just feeling a lot of pressure to be on all the time.
Lots of stress.
A lot of stress. And so that led me to working in excess of 100 hours a week, most weeks, right? And that led to depression and all of the burnout things that happen. And so I sought treatment for the depression, kind of got my feet back under me. And then I was going, okay, I've worked really, really hard to be able to have this career. And I'm moving to a new chapter of my life with my husband.
Me.
And we got married and we were like, we want to have kids together. And I had a very high pressure job and all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, I want to have it all. I've been told my entire life that I can have it all. Mm-hmm. Right. And 1, I'm feeling like it's not true in the moment. And 2, I feel like it has to be true. Right. Like I've worked so hard for, like, how could I get to here and then just phone it in, is how I was feeling at that time. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to phone it in. I'm going to figure it out. And so I started letting myself read the self-help books that, you know, my family was like, ew, what are you reading? Like,
it's a slippery slope.
Read novels. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, I need to be more productive. So I started with productivity. And then very quickly that led to psychology, sociology, physiology. I started reading like all of these different things because I saw how they were all working together to let me have it all. So in my career, I shifted from going 100-hour work weeks, 120-hour work weeks, some weeks, yes, it's possible, to 35-hour work weeks with great performance reviews, right?
Wow. Huge.
And that's personal development, right? And here's what else happened is because I was learning about all this stuff for me, it showed up in my consulting. So when my clients were stuck and overwhelmed and overburdened and working too hard and they wanted the change that the consulting project was trying to bring, but they were kind of rejecting it because of all the other stuff that we learned in personal development, I learned that if I had a one-on-one confidential private conversation about how they wanted to forward their action,
coaching,
I became a much better consultant. So I was coaching before I knew what it was. And I think you get to a certain depth of personal development and then you learn, oh, there's this coaching thing, right? And then I learned, oh, you can get a career as that. And so I could take 10% of my time that I'm spending at consulting, continuing to coach, or I could become a coach and flip it, spend 90% of my time coaching and 10% on all the other stuff. So that's what really kind of inspired me to want to do that. And yeah, I accidentally found Ipek.
Well, it's funny. She got invited to that very first Mod 1 weekend by a friend and went, oh, this will be an interesting development. Because at the time she'd been looking at another coaching certification program. But in that weekend, I was watching the kids at home all weekend. She was in that weekend. The first day she came home and her eyes were huge. It's like, oh my gosh, Chris, we've got to talk about this. Wow. And I was sitting there, finally got all the kids to bed. And I kind of looked up and said, I've been with 4 kids all day. I don't want to talk about your levels right now. So it took a day or two for me to kind of warm up to hearing it. And she kept going through the journey that weekend. And throughout the weekend, I think by the end of it, you described it once before as it was probably some of the most impactful discussion we had in our marriage, almost since we had said, hey, you want to get married? It was that level of impact that we had later on that weekend. And so we said, you should continue on this journey. And she did.
Amazing. That's amazing. For those who don't know, with the iPEC program, there are 3 live trainings that you do, the 3-day live trainings that you do, and we have a virtual version and an in-person version. So those who enroll get to bring a guest to the first weekend. And so Amanda attended as a guest. That's so cool. Wow. That's amazing. And then you decided to continue on with the program, obviously.
I remember so it was over the weekend and we finished on Sunday. And on Monday, I was like scrambling to find out who can I give a credit card to? Like, how do I do this?
She was ready to go.
No sales required. I was like, where are you? Yes.
Take
fine,
my money.
Take my money.
Yes.
Yeah. But I knew from experiencing that weekend that the skill, like the real modality of coaching and just the breakthroughs I had on that weekend alone, I was like, oh my goodness, like if I had 6 months of this, if I had 2 more weekends like this, I would be just unstoppable as a coach. I was already doing well, but it felt like such the tool to put in my tool belt,
Well, absolutely. And I think like when Amanda started, even those first few weeks before she realized she really wanted to be a coach full time, it was very much a personal journey. It was a journey of discovery of tools she could use to almost kind of self-coach in a lot of respects. And I think that's where a lot of coaches start. Maybe not all, but a lot with iPEC probably start from the personal journey. I have this transformation and change I want, and I want these tools to do it. And then as they go through that process, like Amanda did, a couple of weeks into it, she realized, well, why don't I just stop doing the stuff that's not satisfying me over here and do this thing that I love?
The other stuff. Right.
And so I got to watch go through this. And the whole time we joke, Chris was like, yeah, go ahead, honey. Go ahead, dear. I got you. You do it. You do your thing. You love it. And then it was like water dripping on stone. as I was listening to her go through the trainings and the discussions and watching her go through the modules and the change she was going through, I was just watching it and going, wow, I kind of want some of that too. I want to get in on this. I want to go all in on this.
Yeah.
And that led to me then joining as well. Not long after she had wrapped up her training in Mod 3, I then went through it as well.
I started in March. I finished at the end of September, and you started in November.
Yeah. I signed up in September and started in November.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And I love, Amanda, hearing about the foundation that you created for yourself, the choices that you started to make for yourself in the career that you had before, and how those tiny little shifts helped create a beautiful foundation for you. If you would have tried to be in a coach training program back then, it probably wouldn't have stuck the way that it needed to stick after building that foundation for yourself of really intimately understanding yourself and creating a space where you were ready to accept that information.
And I think, you asked me like what kind of why, and we're always hammering why with people, aren't we? It's just like, why?
The why hammer.
Yeah.
And I think one of my biggest motivating factors even to this day is if I was able to find so much time in a given week, right? And if I was able to take so much control of my life, like I could have stayed as a consultant. There was nothing saying I had to create a business. But what I noticed around me that I really was having a hard time tolerating is that no one else seemed to know that they had the power to change things too.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They hadn't been on the journey yet. And I think that's what really appealed to me is like, I still believe, private coaching is probably one of the most powerful things that you can possibly do for unlocking the potential you already have. Right. But what I've also learned along the way is there's a lot of education and, kind of those early days things that coaches sometimes don't want to do, like that education on personal development stuff. And that's all important because it's all the same journey. Like there was that time when I was doing 100-hour work weeks and I picked up my first personal development book, The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin.
Oh, love that.
And then my second one was Getting Things Done by David Allen. And we went from there.
Productivity nerds.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. Majorly down the rabbit hole. And so, as a coach, I realized most people haven't even picked up the Happiness Project yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't even have that beginning stage of awareness. So I realized that to really do what I want to do, which is to impact people to realizing that they have the potential to do what they want to do, I had to be a coach, and I wanted to do some more of that like education kind of dynamic.
That ongoing development to continue to hone the skill.
Pull you into wanting to have a coaching conversation.
Well, and I've noticed that too about us as coaches bringing our whole selves into the clients that we're serving. It's not like we're here just speaking, probables and things like that. We are actually bringing our whole selves to help hold the space for our clients, for them to uncover the solutions within them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What were you saying there, Chris?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, to tie in with what you and Amanda were both saying, for us, that really came back to what drives us now in both our private executive coaching businesses. Each of us both executive coach just individuals as daily life coaches, but also when we're working together, help other coaches launch and grow their coaching business. It's this idea that at the core of our mission, we recognize more people need coaching, but they don't know about it. And so we wanted to help there be more coaches for the people that need it. We wanted to help people be able to find their coaches. And the best way we could do that is either one-on-one coaching a few people at a time, or help other coaches be successful staying in their coaching business, growing it successfully over time, so that then those people that need coaches, they've got successful, capable people there to help.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
That definitely drives us to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Several
that.
years.
Okay, well, let's back up then and talk about, Amanda, you had gone through the program and completed your certification. Chris had enrolled. You guys were kind of on separate, so to speak, tracks in a way. When did things start to intersect together? Because you have this unique experience of being a married couple and also being coaches. And now we know the end of the story, but tell us where the intersection started to happen.
Well, so we like to joke all the time that Amanda is the action taker. She's the execution genius behind this. She's the one that's like, okay, I have the flag, let's go. And she's going up the hill. And I'm the one that's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's make sure we have all our gear. Are we ready to go? That kind of thing. And so when she went first through the iPEC modules and training, she pretty quickly developed, yes, I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to do it this way. And she started getting those other skills she needed beyond just the technical skills that iPEC does so well with teaching folks. And then in watching her do that, I realized, oh, well, wait, those first 4 things she didn't work at all. But that 5th thing she did, that really worked. I'm going to do the 5th thing and skip the other 4. And so that started to get us realizing, well, she's failing into the next action and success, constantly staying into action. And if we just share the things that work with other coaches, that'll help them along the journey. And that was kind of the beginning of us collaborating together a little bit. And she would try a few things and I would say, oh, that one didn't seem to work, or I didn't really like that one, but that one I really like, let's do that. And we'd realize, well, that might be something we should do more of, share more of these things that worked with other people. And we love working together. So this was kind of an easy way to spend more time together.
Yeah. First, I was actually really resistant to working with fellow coaches.
Wow.
I had a big block there because I guess my perception was, and I hear this all the time too, is that only coaches who coach coaches make money as coaches.
We hear that
business,
a lot.
We hear that all the time. And I was
and
like,
there's a bit of a stigma with it in some circles.
Yeah. You remember what I said? I was like, no, that can't be true, right? With the have it all, right? I felt the same way with building a coaching business. I'm like, it can't be true that only coaches who coach coaches can be successful as coaches. Like, that's ridiculous. That can't be true. And so I was very resistant to being one of those, number one.
Coaches who coach coaches.
Interesting, yeah.
And then number 2, I was like, I want to be successful as just a coach. And so what ended up happening is I did that. I for the first 2 years of my business, I had a requirement that I had to personally coach non-coaches 6 figures worth of coaching, right? And that was kind of my permission to be able to teach other coaches, was like, okay, but I have the proof in the pudding that this worked, right? To this level that you want to work at. And I know this because I did this, right?
And we still do it to this day.
Yeah.
So there was a period where there was a lot of cross collaboration with us, where I was like totally getting conflicted because I was getting a lot of taps on the shoulder from colleagues and things like that. Can you help? Can you help? Can you help? And I'm like,
oh, I saw what you did. I loved it. Can you teach me how to do it?
Not yet. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And she was kind of resisting
and I
it
was
a
like,
little bit.
no. And so he helped me a lot with just kind of really thinking through our goals and objectives and getting back to the why.
Might have been some coaching involved in that.
Maybe some coaching.
Using coaching to develop a coaching business. Imagine that.
Right?
Yeah. And it was actually another whole year later before we decided to actually go into business together.
Okay.
And so he needed to feel like he had his feet under him as an independent coach, right? Because he went from being an employee, he didn't want to become my employee. Like, he wanted to show that he could be.
Yeah, I was an ex-CFO. I had my own corporate ego to have to work through in my own little journey.
Sure.
And I got some great coaching by the way too.
Yeah.
So.
And then there was also a certain amount of my independence as well, of just being able to, like, I can do this. I don't need somebody else to, like, do it for me, kind of thing.
And a supportive spouse wanting her to do it her way and her thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was so funny because it ended up being a big block between us, because we were both fighting for this independence thing. And what happened was we went to a mastermind event, and the great Rachel Hollis
actually coached us from the stage.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
And she asked us a pretty open-ended and empowering question that was basically, well, what do you want to do?
And she turned to me and said, so Beardy, what do you want to do? Do you want to be involved in the business? And I kind of looked at her for a second and said, well, hell yeah.
We just hadn't been communicating it because we were trying to honor each other's space and independence.
Sure.
And the day after that, after we said, yeah, we're going to do this, we did our first Crush Method daily show.
Our first live, and we've done them every day, Monday through Friday, for almost a year and a half since then.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh. So much heart and love in this story of honoring each other's individual journeys and intentionally choosing to say yes to each other, not just in your marriage, but in your business too. It's really, really inspiring to hear about this. I want to
Plus,
talk
it's a lot
about
of
playfulness. We're going to get to that too. I want to talk about the crush method and a little bit more around your business. But first, I want to touch on what it's like being coaches in your relationship and the business that you're building together as a couple, because it's a unique situation that I don't know if a lot of people have opened up to it. I mean, you guys were vulnerable and shared that you had some resistance to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny, since we've shared things like that story that we just shared here, for example, we found a lot of other coaching couples that have come up to us and talked to us about their own journey. And it's almost like an invite to open the discussion. And now we're finding a lot more couples that are doing this together. Now, it's certainly not a ton. I think most people are on this journey often individually, but it's becoming more and more common, I think, in a lot of respects.
I think that a lot of why it has worked is because our relationship from the word go has been all about radical, transparent communication, right? Like honesty is our highest value by far. And that's where we started. So we weren't being dishonest in the not communicating that we were trying to respect each other's individual boundaries. But what set us free was to be able to say out loud, I want you to be in and you want to be in. So let's go in together. And like just the ability to have that communication of what is the consequence of that. I think sometimes lots of couples, every couple has their own dynamic.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think if you're going to go into business together, not to be too advicey, but you know, it really does have to be on this plane of absolute mutual respect and absolute mutual communication, and just be aware that there is a power dynamic that happens in every single relationship. So you've got to be clear about what that is and be explicit about how do you feel respected? How do you feel respected?
Yep.
And if you're not like dealing with that immediately, because it is risky to tie up your family's income.
Yes.
In one venture with both of you involved in it. Absolutely.
Sure.
Exactly. So you're very powerful together if you just really address all of those team dynamics, both at home and the business, and just know when boundaries are being crossed and have those explicit communications. I think that that's been like super integral.
Well, you asked how coaching maybe shows up in it, for example.
Right. And, oh my gosh.
And sometimes it shows up really well. For example, like we were describing, where I was able to give a little coaching to her at one point, and also she'll do the same to me and give coaching to me. And sometimes you just have to be okay to say, whoa, coach, I don't want coaching right now. I just want to be spouse for a minute and have that spousal discussion. So you've got to be able to be flexible with it. You've got to be comfortable with it. Talking about the iPEC levels, you've got to be comfortable moving through the levels, both of you, and honoring whichever level the other person is at.
And acknowledging that you will experience it all.
Absolutely.
Right? Like
it's part of the journey.
Exactly. We bring a lot of energy to what we do and to the crush method. And we're super intentional about that, right? And sometimes we bicker.
It's always a bed of roses.
Sometimes a boundary gets crossed and our more animalistic human side comes out and we're like, step off, right? And it can be like that. But I think the power of coaching is that our dynamic in an argument has completely changed. Like when I think, the demarcation line of the first weekend with Ipek, learning, learning what we learned in that first weekend. Before that, arguments were very high friction. Like they would be this butting of the heads. It didn't happen often, but it would just be like, we were not able to talk on the same plane. Right.
Yeah.
And after coaching, we may have an initial kind of moment like that, but because of the skills that we've developed as coaches, we can bring it back to what we actually want it to be.
Absolutely.
Right. And kind of navigate through that, allow the feelings and the vulnerability, and then, use the coaching ability to just, have an open conversation that's honoring of the other person. Right. And not dictating.
Well, and we use it a lot to bring the best out in ourselves when the other needs it in particular. Yeah. So we've commented on a regular basis how it's an interesting dynamic. One of us may be really stressed or really focused on something almost myopically so, and the other one invariably will show up with that higher coach and says, hey, how are you honoring yourself right now? How is this helping you move forward? What makes you feel that way? For example, we had a discussion within the last couple of weeks where you were really stuck on something.
Oh, man.
And you're like, oh, I'm just so frustrated with this. And it's like, why are you feeling that frustration right now? I don't know where this came from. It was that higher that they talk about
your download
phoned in through me and spoke through me. I don't even remember what I said, but at the end of it, Amanda said, wow, that was really great. Thanks for the coach. And I said, what? I coached?
Yeah, no, seriously. It was like an amazing little accidental session.
And that kind of thing happens both ways. It's not one way or the other. It's both ways showing up that way. And we just use it to kind of fall forward and continue to try and stay in action, something we've mentioned a few times, because that action, that drive, for example, that Amanda brings is really what's helped us get where we've gotten as fast as we have gotten there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love hearing about the nuance between making sure that you have buy-in to receive coaching from each other, but then also living in a state of openness and playfulness where if coaching does come through, it's something that's very natural and you sometimes don't even realize that you are coaching in a way. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Definitely kind of permeates everything we do. I mean, you've seen what I do on iPEC. I love to bring the humor, and that's kind of that minimum thing I love to do every day is bring a little bit of humor that maybe shares an insight. Maybe it's just silliness, and that brings a little joy to me. That's my level 5 moment, and maybe brings some joy to others. Well, that's what we do in our coaching business together on a regular basis.
Yep, and in marriage.
And in marriage. That's right.
Marriage. True love.
Love. That's right. Ah, jinx.
That is one of the most amazing things about being a part of the iPEC community. We have such an amazing supportive group of coaches that we can all lean on. And there is no shortage of injections of playfulness and humor when you guys are a part of it. Chris specifically, every morning he shares a meme that just brings up the giggles and brings up some levity and fun to the space. So it's one of my favorite things about the morning when I log into the group. So I would love to talk now about, let's talk about the crush method. And, we're talking about this dynamic that each of you bring to this service that you guys are providing for coaches. How does that play out in the way that you are, meeting coaches where they're at and helping them level up, so to speak?
Absolutely. Well, so CRUSH is an acronym, and it's basically these 5 principles that we found, like, these are the ingredients. No matter what you do, these are the ingredients.
To move a coaching business.
To move anything forward, but especially a coaching business. One of them is clear, right? C is for clear. So if you're not clear where you're going, then you really can't be upset about where you wind up, can you, right? Repeatable. So we teach processes, and we teach that, one of the biggest mindset shifts that I certainly had to make was that business and coaching and life, it's not a destination. It is the journey, right? So the thing is you get to go on the journey when you take repeatable steps. It's one step after another to climb a mountain. It's not one giant leap, right?
Right.
So repeatable processes, approaching things with urgency, right? So that's kind of looking at that drive thing. You can do it tomorrow or the next day or next week or next month or next year. But if you do something today,
even a little thing,
it's like that butterfly effect that it's going to have a big ripple effect 5 years from now. If you wait until 2 years from now to start
with that little thing,
and then you look 5 years from now, then you've lost 2 years in that journey. So, urgency is pretty important. We have this one life, and, I'm not saying do it at breakneck speeds. I'm not saying doing it at the sacrifice of your happiness and your health, but, if you can do it now, do something now, right?
Right.
Strategic is also really important because strategy is the decision making that we make about the resources that we have to get the best possible outcome. I was a strategy consultant for 10 years, right? So that's what strategy actually is. The word gets like thrown around all over the place. But if you, my mom always used to say, you can't live a champagne lifestyle on a beer budget, right? And it's the same thing when you're growing your business. The funny, she's not Texan, but she always said it with that accent.
That's really sweet.
She could be Texan. But I think we do that with business, right? We look at millionaires and multimillionaires building their businesses and we think, wow, I want to do it exactly like that. And we discount that they have team, that they have ad budget, that they have all of these things. And so we try to implement these big strategies. And really the appropriate strategy would be to meet ourselves where we are and start small and work our way up. And that's hard, but it is strategic, right? Because then when you get that momentum, then you get to move much closer towards that goal. And then the last one is helpful.
Which is what we always try to be.
It's always about being helpful. One of the biggest things that gets in the way of any small business owner, never mind coaching, but especially coaching, because we're so heart-centered, is people worry about asking for the sale or being icky or being whatever. Like
the sales discussion is very awkward
Yes.
for a lot of coaches because they're so focused on that that impact centric drive on it.
Right. But then they think, okay, I shouldn't be compensated for giving a really valuable service. And to that, I say, if you are helping, you're never icky, right? If you're helping and it's consensual, you're never icky. So if you can remember to give first and give always, and then just know, I call it the giving line. Know that point at which if you keep giving, you're going to feel taken
advantage of.
Right. So if you are staying on the right side of the giving line and you just give, there's going to be a reciprocity that can happen that people are going to step over the giving line and compensate you for that. And, you know, that's what helpful is all about. So that's what the Crush Method is. And, you know, we work with coaches who don't have a certification yet, all the way up to coaches who have been in business for 10 years and they're frustrated because they've never broken that 6-figure mark, you know? So and we just do it by having fun. We've got a range of programs. We've got a community. We've got our paid community that we do some extra training in as well. And it's
focused on those skills that are not classic coaching skills per se, because they're great programs like iPEC that skill of coaching.
Oh yeah.
So we don't need to do that. We teach the other things that help a coach have a successful coaching business.
Exactly.
Sales, marketing, packaging, how to develop an engaging relationship in the client relationship, things like that.
Building an audience, knowing what strategies you can use when you're lean on the bank account and when you should be starting to scale up and things like that.
Right. And it's all coming from what I'm feeling is a very heart-centered place, which I think is something that could be a fear for someone who's starting out, if they're certified or not, wanting to make sure that they don't feel like they're selling something that isn't of value or something that can connect with people. And that's something that it sounds like is really just a thread that's woven out through your entire process. I mean, Chris is the Chief Love Officer, so how could it not?
That's right. That's my official title in the business, CLO, Chief Love Officer, and I'm in charge of nurturing and goofiness.
You're so good at it.
Well, there you go. Well, I think you characterized that really, really well. And I would go one step further and say it's all of that and it's action. Because we see a lot of coaches that are so focused on being helpful and want a coaching business, but they may not take the actions that are going to help them, even in small steps, move towards that goal. And that's a big part of what we do and why we bring such positive energy is to kind of help people realize that they can take a small step repeatedly, as Amanda said earlier, to go up that mountain, one repeatable step at a time, consistently taking action. And before you know it, you're halfway up the mountain. And so pushing people and helping people through that action process, that's really a lot of what we're about and why we do what we do so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like to joke we're not the Lamborghini coaches.
We have a minivan.
we have a minivan. We have 4 kids and too many cats. But the point in that is I think sometimes we see those ads that say like, I should have a business where I'm like sipping Mai Tais on the beach and I'm not even touching it and I'm not even engaged with that. And that can be a bit off-putting when you got into coaching because you want to have impact.
Yeah.
Right. And so the thing is that it's easier to have impact when you can support your lifestyle.
And stay in the practice.
Exactly. So never mind the Lamborghini. How about we just take care of Mr. Mortgage and Mrs. Visa and, you know, allow you lots of space to be able to have the impact you want to have.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, and especially now, I'd love to kind of frame up the close of our conversation around, you know, this experience as a society, as humanity that we are all in right now with this pandemic, of really needing to think about things in a different way and really needing to equip ourselves if we want to take action to take those steps now rather than waiting until some uncertain future is ahead of us and we have, you know, what we imagine could be a clearer picture of what's going to be happening. So I'd love for you guys to talk about, you know, your perspective on like why now, especially during this time, to be taking action for yourself and for your business.
You're like, I know you have a soapbox. You're just about to get me up
I
on
know. Yeah. Here, let me help you up on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So urgency, right, is one of our philosophies, our principles. And I think the thing is that we as humans are wired to defer.
It's risk avoidance. It's how we've evolved as a species. We avoid the risk.
It's just our wiring, right? It's why you've got the laundry to put away still, even though you just wash it all. It's why you leave the dishes in the dish rack, right? It like we as humans choose to defer by default, right? And so it's only natural that when there's so much going on right now and so much uncertainty and so much chatter in the media waves and the social medias and all that we become triggered into sort of that protective space and then default to deferring because that's what we do.
So dropping down in those levels.
Right, exactly. And that's okay, right? Number one, that is okay. You've got to feel your feels. The worst thing we can do is deny them.
Or judge yourself for it.
For it. Because just all it does is
it's
keep
perfectly
you
understandable. Yeah.
It's completely understandable.
Keeps you stuck.
Everybody's going through that. You know, we go through that.
Yep.
And right. And if you have the consciousness to understand that your choice to have choice is important, and if you understand that you modeling what it looks like to take personal control in a situation where people feel very out of control, when you simply model that for other people, never mind, you know, convincing them to work with you as a coach client or anything like that, just that you're able to have a laugh and share a smile and do something helpful. Now's never been the best time. I don't think I said that right. It's never been a better time.
Yeah.
To go for it in your life, whatever it happens to be. We're more connected than ever through the internet, right? The tools are abundant and they are often largely free or inexpensive to facilitate some additional connection. You know, our whole camera crew for what we're doing in our business is my iPhone, right?
Right.
It's not fancy. It's just, there's so much opportunity. And I would say if you're thinking about being a coach and you want to be of service to other people, there's also never been a bigger demand, right?
There's a lot of people that could benefit from coaching right now.
I would say 3 months ago, our biggest challenge in the coaching industry was nobody in the mainstream really understood what coaching was. So then we had to go through this whole education process, and we're competing with the humdrum of the day, the commute and the noise and all of this kind of thing.
All the hubbub of normal daily life.
Right.
That's all shifted now.
That's all shifted because now people are really considering very big questions. Is this what I want to be doing with my life? What happens if XYZ happens? And people are really starting to have those kinds of questions crop up. And that's leading to a lot of feelings of insecurity and uncertainty. And I really believe that if you have the ability as a coach, and the need as a coach to have more conversations with people about how this doesn't have to be the end of the world, that there is opportunity in every situation, and to do it in such a way that's honoring the fact that they are probably still freaking out, and that's okay.
Honoring where they are.
Right? If you have more of that consciousness to say, you know what, maybe I'm going to do a Facebook Live talking all about my morning meditation practice. Or why I make green smoothies, and I'm going to do a little live where I show you what goes into my smoothie or something like that. And you might think, well, what does that have to do with coaching? Well, it's kind of like I said, when that person has never picked up that personal development book before, you're just kind of getting their attention that they can have some control. That's it. Right?
Just an initial little step in that case.
And it's one more step toward. And I just feel like if all the coaches and all the people who knew that stuff was really healthy did more of that, we can offset some of the negativity and everything else that's happening without ever having a coaching session.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's just that little bit of action step. And as we were talking about earlier, and as Amanda just kind of highlighted, those little steps, taking small actions consistently over time, that really begins to move the needle. That's what we call the BAM, the bare bleep minimum. We want to keep it G. We want to keep it G.
Imaginations for the bleep. BAM, BAM.
And that BAM, that bare bleep minimum, that's the little thing that you can do consistently. Maybe it's daily or weekly, for example, but it's frequently and consistently that begins to develop your confidence that you can do a thing, because you don't get confidence instantly from day one. A lot of folks, a lot of coaches say to us, oh, I would love to go live more, but I just don't have the confidence of it. Guys, real truth bomb here. You don't get the confidence until you have the courage to take those actions, those small BAMs, repeatedly, frequently. Over time, you see that it can be done, and you develop the confidence to consistently show up and then up that BAM just a little bit, not all the way up to the top,
right.
Just a little bit, and then succeed at a new level. Then you can begin layering them. Before you know it, you're doing amazing things and scaling mountains in your business with those little actions that build.
Yeah. That's way better than waiting until next month.
Yes, right. Well, and that was something that we had talked about, how long are you going to be, air quotes, getting ready for this? Right. And I love also, just to take it back to the beginning of our conversation, Amanda, when you were trying things and figuring out your way in your individual coaching practice, and Chris was able to say, hey, that thing, the fifth thing, keep doing that thing. You may never have come to that conclusion if you had just spent that entire time getting ready. And what a magnificent power of having Chris there to mirror that for you. Even if you're not in a, spousal relationship, having a coach there to say, I've been here with you this entire time, and I noticed that when you did this, it didn't work, but when you did this, it did work. And now you have this information to help lead you like a little treasure map to the next destination. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why most of what we do in the Crush Method, a lot of it at least, is very focused on helping coaches get into those first action steps, whether it's through a challenge that gets them started, to your point exactly, and just kind of gets them out of the nest a little bit to finally take some actions, or whether it's something putting together a program that really gives them the technical details they need for those non-coachy skill areas they're going to need in their business. That's really what we love about our day and what inspires us to keep doing what we're doing.
Love that, guys. Well, we're going to be closing down the conversation soon. So anyone who's joining us live, if you have any questions for Amanda and Chris, feel free to add those into the Q&A box or on our Facebook comment feed. It is so much fun talking with you guys.
Thank you.
Chris, you were kind of alluding there to a couple of the maybe what we might call potential outputs from someone being a part of, receiving your services. What are some other types of outputs that someone could expect to, start to see if they were to work with you guys?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to share?
Yeah. So the first thing we always work on with a coach is the clarity piece of, and not your niche.
Nope.
Not your niche. A lot of people really get stuck there. What we actually get clarity on is, what is your bigger business goal? Right? Like, what are you really trying to do? So we help you with that. And then that leads to what we call the minimum viable offer. So it's that idea of being really scrappy. Maybe this is version 1, and the one that you're going to go with for a longer period is going to be your version 5. But if you don't get version 1 done, you don't get version 5. Right?
To start somewhere and get into action before you can begin perfecting it. Not make it
Exactly.
perfect, not fail to get into action because you're constantly polishing it to perfection. Instead, get that scrappy thing, as Amanda said, out there. Get good enough out.
Yep.
Get into action. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and then improve on it. The next step is to do it just a little better.
Exactly.
And refine it just a little more.
And it gives you clarity about what you're selling, right? And then we teach you how to sell it, because the thing that happens, and this happens a lot, is you're sitting on a plane or you're hanging out at a barbecue. We actually have a client who went to a 3-year-old's birthday party barbecue, and she picked up a client, right?
Wow.
So that's without any marketing. But if she didn't have the sales skill, her that couldn't have happened. So we always teach sales first before marketing. And on marketing is a huge topic, but we just kind of take it one thing at a time.
Absolutely. And we're talking about sales here. What we mean by sales is just continuing the conversation to figure out, is there a fit between what the person needs by way of a change or a result or a goal they're trying to reach, and what we can do as a coach to help them along. Both from their side, does the client get clarity on that? But do we get clarity as a coach? Do I want to work with this person on this challenge that they need change with?
Exactly.
Getting that clarity by continuing conversations. That's really how you avoid icky sales.
And you might actually love this. We call our sales methodology consciousness-based selling.
Because we're raising the consciousness on the coach and the coachee to what the challenge is. Do they want to work through it, and how do they move forward, discovering a way to work on that together?
Exactly. So none of that inception stuff where you're just plopping an idea in somebody's head, or you're nefariously using
no Jedi mind tricks,
right?
No NLP, none of that. It's just having a high quality conversation, right?
Beautiful. I love that. That's awesome, guys. Yeah. We had a question from Tracy. What was one of your BAMs?
Oh my gosh, we have so many BAMs.
Okay, so I kind of already alluded to it, so there won't be a huge surprise there. But my BAM, okay, so it's very clear. I love humor. I love the joy it brings to me every day. And so part of the rationale of the BAM is picking something that's a small step, but something that you can consistently show up for. So it needs to be something that fits for you. It's going to bring you more energy in the day. Well, for me, that's laughter. That's humor. So my BAM, for example, is every day I just spend a few minutes to get a little laughter out there, a meme, for example, or a funny inside joke or something like that. And I share them every day in iPEC, for example, and other places as well. But that both satisfies my level 5. I get a win out of that. That brings me a lot of joy. So I always want to show up and do it each day. And then, of course, it brings some other people some joy, maybe helps them along as well. So that's that level 5 plus out of it. And that makes it easy for me to show up for that BAM every day.
Yeah.
Well, what's one of your BAMs?
So we practice something that I call BAM layering.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right. So you start with a BAM, and it's just one at a time, and you're just really committed to making it happen. It doesn't matter how little it is. It could be like microscopic. Other people wouldn't notice, kind of small.
Low barrier to entry.
But that you're super committed. So when we first started, we set a BAM of doing our Crush Method Daily Live show. So on our Facebook page every day, 12:30 Central, 1 p.m. on Thursdays, we do a live show.
Just a free show.
And at first, it was just do it. So
get into action.
It was all over the place, time of the day, the duration, all this.
It was not very BAMmy.
It was there, but it was a struggle. And then the next layer was, we're going to do it every day at 12:30.
So layered another BAM on.
Right. And again, it was like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. And then after we mastered that, then we were like, okay, 30 minutes. Right. So now we're like the Ellen show. Like we're every day at the same time, like we're daytime television with it. But that took us almost a year and a half to get to the place where it was like, okay, we are reliable, like clockwork. We're gonna do this. Another BAM that we started in September, I had been emailing our list every week right from the word go. Like that I started with my business while I was still in Ipek.
Like just once a week,
just like
once
a week, a blog post kind of thing. And then I upped that to 2 to 3 times a week in the following year. And then last September, I started doing a daily email.
Wow.
Every day. Right. And I say daily email and daily Crush Method Live, and people go, you
Whoa.
what?
That's where my head went too. I'm like, wait, what?
But you notice
you built up to it.
Yeah, we didn't start there. We started with that
Right.
low barrier to entry, bam, the bare bleep minimum.
10 minutes. Right?
And then layered it.
Now my daily email practice takes me 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
So I'm spending 30 minutes live and 15 minutes on my email if I don't batch them. And I often batch them, right?
Yeah.
But still, that's 45 minutes spent marketing in your business.
Out of a whole day.
And when you think of an 8-hour day, is 45 minutes totally reasonable?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Imagine how good you'll be at something. Doing it, for example, like these two things, bam every day on the live or bam every day on the email. At the end of the day, now we've got over 300 episodes of that daily live show. We're pretty comfortable on live now. We've kind of got our method down. We've got our comfort down with that. Yeah. So see, imagine how good you'll get. I mean, it's like Malcolm Gladwell's realization of 10,000 hours. We don't have 10,000 hours yet, but we're well on our way.
We were actually talking about that just yesterday. We had a live that didn't go exactly the way we planned. There were some techie glitches and stuff like that. And we kind of had like a little grump about it. And then I said to Grace, I was like, well, we haven't hit the 10,000 hours yet.
We had a laugh about it. It's like, totally okay then.
There's some more space to go. Sure, totally. I love it. Oh, you guys. I hope that everyone who's watching is feeling as inspired as I am with this. I would even venture to say maybe all of us could take a challenge and claim a BAM for today. You know, what's a small bare bleep minimum that we can do that's going to get us closer to a goal that we have in our coaching business or just in our lives in general. So it's super inspiring talking with you both. Thank you for sharing so authentically. I love being able to connect with you. And someone's curious what your BAM is for today, guys.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, we have our live show at 1:00. So
absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah, and
I've already shared my BAM for the day of the humor.
Yes.
My email already went out. So I think like for us, what we're really focused on now is building another layer of consistency with our live marketing events.
Absolutely.
You know, like our webinars and kind of more complicated things. But that's what we're really focused on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you know, you mentioned, we talked about action, we talked about BAMs. If you or anyone else is interested, just join us at thecrushchallenge.com and you can take part in an action challenge around the BAM, around these other initial steps that can help you in that path. They're all short little trainings to help you get going as a coach. And it's all free.
We're going to be posting the link for that in the chat box and in our Facebook feed too. So I highly encourage everyone, even if you aren't enrolled in iPEC, even if you haven't started your coach certification journey, please take advantage of these two lights, Amanda and Chris, because we believe also that being able to support you guys, all ships rise together, just the way that you are helping other coaches be able to feel confident and comfortable in sharing their gifts with the world. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. If anyone is absolutely. So if anyone is interested in learning more about becoming a professional certified coach, we're going to be posting some links in the chat box here so that you can learn how to get in touch with iPEC. Also, Amanda and Chris are iPEC ambassadors. So if you want to hear about their experience, feel free to reach out to them. And I know that they are more than happy to let you know about their experience and maybe give you some insights about what they thought about when they were going through the program too. So
we do it all the time.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And we love that. It's much more meaningful to have it coming from coaches like you guys than it can be even from us. So third-party endorsements all the way. I love it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Know, what's really funny on that, just like really, really quick, is I do a lot of the marketing coaching and stuff like that now. And just this week, I had a coaching session, a private session with folks that typically are asking me about Facebook ads and like marketing strategies and things like that. And the whole conversation like flipped to being 100% a core energy coaching session, you know? So if you're wondering like, how can I use this? It shows up all the time for us, not just in the mowage, not just in what we do, but just, yeah, like happy to chat with you about how it could work with other things too.
And you've got
Absolutely.
a great group here in iPEC. Guys, watching this in iPEC, take advantage of this group. You've got such a wealth of expertise and knowledge and just love and peer support here in the iPEC group. That's one of the best things I think iPEC has done is curate such a supportive group where coaches can feel comfortable and supported on their journey of developing and growing their coaching skills and business.
Yes, awesome. Wonderful words to end with. Thank you all so much for joining us today, whether you were able to join us live or watch the replay. This has been our Energy Explorer live series with Amanda and Chris with the Crush Method, and we will see you all next time. Thanks, Amanda and Chris. We'll see ya.
Bye, guys.